Hey, friends, we're talking about packing lists both for the individual and for the mission. The free PDF coming up. Hey, friends, welcome back to the channel, man. As always, I'm stoked to see you. So looking at a mission packing list as well as a personal packing list and some things I want to try to put in your kit bag as we get going. And this was part of the main point of discussion for a class that I did not too long ago up in Kitsap County for everybody who could attend. I think it was a pretty good kind of show and tell, if you will. But I tried to make it more than that and try to focus on the why, right? The why has to come first, even when it comes to what we're doing in our planning aspect, when it comes to bushcraft, when it comes to survival, taking care of our family, all of these things, man, we have to get down that why first. And once we first answer that, and I think for the vast majority of us, the why is going to include things like taking care of our families, being a provider for our families, being a protector for our families, enjoying what God has given us out in nature around us, being good stewards, being a good community partner, all of these things, right? So I do look forward to hearing your why, and we're going to get going on this one. And I'm going to let you know that if you look down in the description below, that you will find a link to a PDF that has both the personal packing list as well as the mission packing list. And this is where we're going to start first, is the mission side of the house, right? So just a couple things on the overview, and I try to take out some of the military-esque jargon, if you will. But you'll see a lot of it. You may recognize a lot of it really comes down to our operational variables and our MET-TC, right, is what we're talking about. So mission, enemy, terrain, troops, time, and civil considerations. Of course, back in the day, we didn't have civil considerations. It was just MET-T. But thinking about the overview, right, of where are we going? What's the timeline that we're looking at? We're both thinking about time of year as well as time of day, right? Who all is going? What are the strengths and weaknesses of any participants? What's the actual purpose of the trip? Right? We're going out for a day. We're going out for a week. We're going out to plan to do a rehearsal for an SHTF moment, right? What's your means of transport? Along the way and at the objective, what are your means for urgent care? What is the law enforcement and the civil considerations? Right? Is the civil area stable? Right? Or is it upset? Is it triggered easily by local events? I have points of contact for the law enforcement, for any kind of park rangers, for all of your lower TI, your FM comms, right? Both shortwave, ham, amateur, and again for all your law enforcement, pararescue, sheriff's department, all these things, right? What's happened in the area in the past, it kind of goes into conducting some reconnaissance, as well as some mission decision points and abort criteria. So what needs to happen before you go in order for you to cancel the trip altogether, right? That's what we're talking about. It could be an issue with the, civil unrest. It could be an issue with family or a work member. What are some decision points across the way? Like if I get to the base camp and it's obvious that you can't continue from there, so you have to have these kind of criteria and think about how you're going to mitigate risk. So when it comes to things like weather, you need to understand what your expected highs and lows are, right? Are you expecting a torrential downpour? Are you expecting solar energy which could have an impact on your electromagnetic considerations, especially shortwave radio? Right? Are you expecting what kind of precipitation? What's the humidity going to be like? All these things are going to dictate our personal packing list that we haven't even gotten to yet. What's the cloud cover going to be looking like? When is sunrise and sunset? How much time, how much daylight do you have to play with? What's your lunar phase and tidal considerations? Again, a lot of these things will have maybe some minor impact on your operation, but it's still going to have an impact, and it's something that we need to be aware of, right? When it comes to the terrain, we need to be thinking about size, slope, and elevation, orientation, the shape of the terrain. And if you look at it from a macro level, you're probably going to see that there is a general way that the terrain is flowing, whether it's north and south or east and west. And some of these major and minor features that you're going to be encountering are going to be there, and they're going to help make you oriented to the world around you. And we need to know what these are before we actually step out. Not only is it going to be things like natural terrain features like peaks and valleys and rivers, but also man-made features, roads or power transmission lines, railroad lines, and other infrastructure that's been put in place. You're going to notice a lot of the time is going to run north and south or east and west. And as long as we do our reconnaissance prior to, we can understand how to use these things to the best of our ability. All right, we should understand what the flora and what the fauna is for where we're going, as well as, again, between us and there. Is the fish and wildlife healthy? Is it abundant? Are there some natural fruits and vegetables? Are there some natural fruit-bearing trees? What does the wood selection look like? If it's nothing but Doug fir and pine trees and other evergreens, your availability of things like pitch is going to be higher. Whereas if you have harder wood, it's going to be really good, especially if you're trying to build some projects and cook some meat, right? We want to think about some natural boundaries. Again, it could be a cliff. It could be a stream, it could be a river. These are all going to be helpful so that when we're planning routes in and through an area, we know if we become too far away in a certain direction, right? It's a natural boundary that's going to help push us back. And or it could be a natural boundary that's going to keep predators out, two-legged and the four-legged kind. We want to think about our routes, both for how we're going to get there, our insertion points, the routes in and through the objective, having both primary and alternates. Again, depending on all of the criteria that we're coming across and these variables that we're going to encounter potentially, so that we can have different decisive action points, right? What are some checkpoints that we're going to establish? These could be nothing but just taking a short break and resting the legs, stopping for the night, having a meal. Plan these things on the front end, and it's going to help set you up for success while you're on your trip. Right, we need to be thinking about contingency planning. It could be things including like a vehicle breakdown, a major or minor first aid accident that happens, right? Do we have the tools and the resources and the experience to mitigate some of these risks? What's our plan if somebody becomes isolated or lost in our group? What immediate action drills are we going to take if we encounter any sort of enemy contact? And again, this could be, coming across an animal. It could be a weather pattern that we're introduced to. Or God forbid, if you're in an SHTF moment, what are your actions going to be if you have visual contact and or physical contact with anybody else, right? So moving on, we need to think about that logistical support that's going to be needed in order to sustain and maintain our operations. How are we going to resupply? What are our cash system look like? What's our medical plan? Are we trying to think that we're going to be hunters and gatherers, or are we going to be farmers, or a little bit of mixture of both? Right, all of these things, if we don't plan on the front end, again, it's going to wreak havoc throughout the operation. Depending on where you're at and where you're looking at going to, your infrastructure is going to play a key role in a lot of your planning considerations. When I'm thinking about buildings, what's the state of the buildings that are around? Are they all dilapidated? Do they have gas and propane? Is the electricity on? Is it good, clean energy? Or is it dirty power, right? Because dirty power is going to have an impact on anything that I plug in. What is the state of the sewage? Right? These are a lot of things we don't think about and we don't talk about a lot of the times. But I'm telling you, if we don't, then we're fooling ourselves and we're setting ourselves up for not success, right? Thinking about water, right? Is it clean coming in? Do I still need to filter my water? Does it still need to be purified? Am I working off of well water and streams? Do I have city water? What is the state of the transportation and the road system in and around and through my objective? Again, whether we're talking about urban planning and environmental considerations, or whether we're off into the wilderness somewhere. You're still going to have trail systems. You're still going to have roads, and ways of interconnecting. And you need to understand the impact and the state of all of the system that's been put into place. We do, of course, need to think about civil considerations. We're talking about, size and structure of the civilian population, right? Right. What's the state of the training and the readiness of that local population, right? What's their ethnic background? What is their cultural makeup? What are their values, their beliefs, their norms? What is taboo, right? And again, even within the United States, there's going to be a lot of differences, whether you're talking about the Southeast or the Northwest, the Northeast or the central United States. And if we go somewhere and project our beliefs, our stereotypes, and preconceptions, we can find ourselves at a disadvantage and not prepared for excellence. What's the social volatility of the areas that we're traveling through or to? What are some different holidays and observances that we need to be mindful of? Right? And we take all of this together, right, before we start packing our personal items, right, or the items needed for our group, right? Because we can't start with the whats and the what and the eaches. We need to start with bigger. We need to start with the story, with the narrative. We need to understand some of the hows before we get down into the whats and the eaches. Because once we start getting into these areas, and there's 10 basic areas that I think that we need to have consideration on, and that's food, fire, water, shelter, first aid, navigation, communication, self-defense, maintaining a core body temperature, and our hygiene. Each of these areas is going to be dictated what we're going to bring based off of those operational variables and that mission planning that we did. It's going to be based off of our knowledge and our experience as individuals as well as a community. The less that I know, the more that I probably need. The more that I know, the less that I need. But that doesn't mean that I don't want specific items. Just because I can start a fire with a flint and steel doesn't mean that that is what I want to do. So I can build redundancy in my systems, in my processes. And that's okay, but again, we should be thinking about the risk issues that we need to be mitigating as we're planning. When we're thinking about weight distribution, balancing our caches of systems that we have and what we have on our person, our must-have items for basic survival. And then we start adding onto those with what may be in a backpack, what may be in a cart that we're pushing, what may be in a vehicle, what may be on a horse or mule or all-terrain vehicle, what could be pre-cached at a cabin. Because we're fooling ourselves if we think that we can carry 100 pounds, or that if we think that 100 pounds is going to be sufficient for long-term needs. Right, so when you get down into the description below and you click on that link, it's going to take you over to my Google Drive, and you're going to find both of these in a single PDF. The one is the mission planning, and then the other one is some personal packing list items that you can have for consideration. It's not an all-inclusive list. It's just some things to get your brain housing group working and thinking about things in a little bit different aspect. And so in addition to the PDF link that you're going to see down in the description below, you're also going to find a link over to my Amazon influencer page, which is set up based off of these 10 basic core areas. So I hope you enjoyed the content of the video. If you did, and you think somebody else could also benefit, then make sure you shout out this thing and share it out with somebody, and we can bring them into the conversation in the community so that we can continue to master our craft and develop our tactical virtue. Again, man, I hope you guys are doing well. You stay out there and you stay stoked.